Welcome to the Hands Up If You're Human podcast, dedicated to exploring and celebrating the messy reality of being human. In these conversations, we will be discussing the many challenges and barriers we all face that prevent us feeling connected, fulfilled, and happy, and explore the ways we can create the lives we really want to live by understanding, accepting, and fully embracing everything that makes us human. From our innate gifts and the things we've been taught to think of as our flaws to our deepest unmet needs and desires that we feel shame over, we want to explore all the nuance and complexity that comes as a package deal simply by being human. Recognizing and accepting all of our true selves empowers us to authentically show up in all aspects of our lives. And now more than ever, it feels like the world needs as much acceptance and authenticity as possible. My name is Wyndham.
And I'm Lisa.
How are you, Lisa?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, nothing to complain about this week, which is nice.
Wonderful. Are you sure? Or you're just choosing not to?
No,
not that I want to goad you or tempt you into complaining when you don't feel like it.
I'm quite tired, but I'm normally tired by Friday. I've had a really busy, in a lovely way, work-wise I'm busy.
Yeah.
A lot of yoga, which I've got at the end of next week. I go on holiday and I'm ready for that holiday.
Yeah.
Before burnout, I'm not feeling burnt out, but I can feel like a break, recharge is needed.
Energy reserves are running a little low.
And I'm just about to go camping, so that one's
that will drain the last of them.
Yeah. And luckily Monday's not so hectic, but still I've got to be on. Do you know what I mean? I can't be like fluffy and it's okay. And I think, and you may feel the same way with what we do, is like sometimes it's quite intense, and I have lots of different people coming with different, their life, and things that they're struggling with. So you hold space for that. And although I think I'm quite good at, I don't go to bed thinking about everyone's problems or anything like that, but you are holding space for that. And you've got multiple of them in one day. You just have to be really, really careful about grounding yourself, finding your own space. And I know my capacity now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. I don't think I do yet. So I think sometimes I find as I get more into this kind of work, I feel my empathy growing, and I'm yet to properly insulate myself from the potential effects of that. This is going to sound very silly, but even watching the gymnastics at the Olympics, the pressure I feel when these incredible women are on the beam or whatever like that, it's like, God, I'm in bits that they might fall off. It's terrible. It's awful. I need to ground. I need some guidance on that.
I think that's a lovely quality to have, and it just shows you're fully immersed in it, and I think I'd much prefer to be that way than any other way. But I hear you. So. I hear you. I was just saying, I went to a funeral this week, and although it was somebody that had been poorly for a long time, and they're not massively, I'm not closely linked to them, like you cannot help but feel all the feels of a funeral. And and that was an exhausting day, but in a beautiful way. But celebrating someone's life and just seeing what a life they had. And we're just talking about making choices and thinking, well, why he made his choices and what he created in that time. And it's good to be empathetic. I believe it's a good quality, but you do need to learn to go, it's not mine. It's not mine. It's
That's where I'm learning at the moment. But you're right. I would choose to learn the lesson rather than remove the empathy, so I don't have to learn the lesson. If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, so on to this main episode, and today we are talking about self-sabotage. So I will ask, I can feel us both beginning to go, oh no, this feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Self-sabotage, what does that mean to you?
Right, I've got my notes because I think there's a lot in this one. I personally feel, for me, my self-sabotage has, for one, it's come from low self-esteem and fear of my true potential. Okay. So what it is something that stops me from being my best self, something destructive, or I'm making a choice consciously or unconsciously to not reach a goal or aspiration or to become the person I want to be, that I will put something in the way that's basically shits all over it. And I mean that's being dramatic, but ultimately stops that flow.
Yeah, it's for me, I think it's that what we do that prevents us getting what we want or achieving what we want. And I agree with you 100% insofar as I think it's fear driven. And actually, with all the work I do around the blueprint, I think it's all deeply embedded in our blueprint. The things we think we believe and the things we believe to be true are so deeply ingrained that when we hear these messages of like, no, you just go for what you want, you know, we have all this noise swirling around us of positivity and, you know, create your own life and, you know, it's all down to you. But underlying that, we have deeper beliefs and truths which are fear-based, and they go, yeah, but you don't really deserve it. And if you get it, what are people going to think? And if you don't get it, what are people going to... It's just this melee of... You said whether it's conscious or unconscious. I think it's almost always unconscious. Certainly in the first instance, I think we can gain awareness, and then there's a whole process of work around when do we become aware we've done it? Because like anything, awareness starts after the fact. So we reflect and go, oh, and the more we practice, the closer we come to the moment where that, in this case, self-sabotage happens. And then the more we practice, maybe we can predict it. When we get really good at it, we go, oh, I know what's going to happen here. So what do I do in that scenario? But I agree with you. I think it's getting in the way of ourselves. It's that classic, you know, I was talking to a friend yesterday and it was like, got to get out of our own way. Self-sabotage is being in your own way.
It is. And you, like, we've obviously discussed this beforehand, but you've always said you don't like the wording of it either.
Really
so actually getting in your own way is actually a really nicer way of saying it.
Yeah.
Well, I means the same thing, really.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think we've done enough of these, and I think I'm pedantic enough with the language that anybody who listens to more than a few of these is going to recognize I'm all over the language we use. And the reason I don't like this term self-sabotage, and it's the same with when people say, oh, you've got to fight your own demons. Don't like that either. And for the same reason. For me, what is a saboteur? So sabotage is caused by a saboteur. We spoke about this, I think, in our last episode, when we were talking about communication and talking. It was like, well, I use language based on my understanding. It goes out into the world and you understand it based on your experience and understanding. For me, a saboteur, my relationship with that word is the French resistance during the Second World War. French resistance were saboteurs. They were deliberately, intentionally destroying Nazi infrastructure. So irrespective of the context, it's intentional, deliberate destruction. I refuse to believe that any part of me wants to destroy any part of me. I don't believe that to be true. I did for a long time. I don't anymore. So the language doesn't work for me. However, I still have these things that I do that stop me stepping into my full self. So I've come up with different language. So I don't have self-saboteurs. I have an incompetent close protection team because I fundamentally believe they are trying to protect me. Your thoughts?
Well, I want to know, what are they? Like, what stops you? Oh no, like, I want to know what who the team are.
I wasn't expecting that.
I want to know who the team are. Like, let's be introduced to the team.
Yeah. So there are a couple. There's the big one has been too cool to try. And we've covered this certainly it came up in the episode, I think it was episode 6, when I was talking about my background. So the refuse. So at that young age, having an incident with my geography teacher that stopped me taking risk. So I was more worried about being humiliated than I was about the potential upside of failing. So I stopped trying at things I wasn't convinced I was going to be good at. Now I've rehabilitated the language. So that self-saboteur is the 11-year-old version of me, right? The saboteur doesn't grow as I do. So I'm there in my mid-40s with preventative, protective behaviors of an 11-year-old. Now that does not serve the 45-year-old me. And so that's the biggest one. I think I also have one, and I think we share this one. I also have one that I haven't fully defined it yet, but I have at times a very strong intention not to drink alcohol. And my ability to maintain that isn't very strong. So yesterday I caught up with a mate. I wasn't going to drink. I did. So today I can feel it in my body. It's not a horrible hangover, but it just takes, you said it takes the edge off, it takes the shine off, and it stops us really being who we truly are.
Yeah, I think it just takes a couple of days to fully feel that energy back that you create by healthy living, going for that run, getting on your yoga mat, reading the right, a book that's inspiring. In the moment, having a drink with some friends, and we were talking about this too, sometimes there's value in it because it allows people to open up, and they feel like you can get on an equal with people that maybe you wouldn't be able to otherwise, as long as you know yourself. I mean, I'm talking about me in this situation, but I always wonder, is the payoff that then you've got 2 days to kind of do all those things again to get that, what I call prana, your energy, like you're connected again in that time, your momentum for whatever you're working towards. It's like, oh, you've just been you've slowed it down.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because it is an interruption to feeling good. How very articulate, but you know what I mean? That
no, I know what you're saying.
If actually we're working towards something we believe we really want, which I think is, it's not self-sabotage if it isn't interrupting us achieving something we want, right?
No, I think probably for me it's heavier. It feels because I'm all about promoting wellness and being in your center and whatever. Whatever, again, I'm using crap language now too, but what I'm saying is like, in terms of being, I feel my best self when I'm on that yoga mat, or I'm with that client and I'm there fully present. I feel healthy, I feel well, I'm very, very aware. I'm just like, I genuinely feel like you're on a good vibration. And being that person, not because I want anyone to ever put me on a pedestal. For me, then when I have a drink or I party, I'm going, oh, like it feels even more of a sabotage, because I wonder what would happen if I didn't do that. I wonder how much more I could do. I wonder how much more I'd be able to meditate or have psychic abilities, or the whole, because I have all of that. And sometimes I'm very intuitive. I very much hear things come in and I know what's going to happen. But if I have alcohol or a hangover, like the alcohol's fine, like I'm having a great time in the moment, then it disrupts that. As does the anxiety that sometimes you get from drinking afterwards. And I think, God, that's a waste of my time and energy, worrying about something that I know can sometimes give me anxiety. Wow, that's just, again, where your energy, where I'm focusing isn't where I want to be focusing.
Yeah. So interestingly, if you've just identified a number of things that can expand further, and in that expansion you expand and you end up taking up more space, and not in in a way that imposes yourself on anybody, but your truer self comes through in a greater way. Why do we fall back? Because the sabotaging actions are old patterns, right? I think. Why do we fall back into them?
Well, it's fascinating, like observing recently, because I feel like I've become a socialite all of a sudden. Like I've last year, I think I was trying to find my feet again after the grief, and I had a lot more alone time. Where this year was very much like I'm ready to be out and again, and with that means I've been invited to a lot of things, and therefore I've got a willpower over that, so I end up, joining in whatever's going on, basically. I now drink on good emotions. Like, so if I feel like, oh my God, I feel like brilliant, I've achieved, like, and this is not ego driven, just delighted that whatever I've been trying to create is happening. I'm manifesting it. I'm doing it. I'm supporting people. I feel like I've, made a difference to people's lives in a week. Then there is this like, oh, like I'll drink on that rather than just enjoying that feeling. It's like, oh, great, I've done loads. Like, that's amazing. You don't need to do any more. Great, you can put your brain out of gear for a couple of days if you need to. Like, but my brain out of gear doesn't mean I have to be hungover or a bit fluffy. My brain out of gear could be just being still or being like, it could be anything. It could be gardening. It could be anything. So I think it's cultural for me. I think that probably genetics, like as well. Like it was something that my family used to use to, I don't know, I guess to manage, even though I'm managing more happy feelings rather than negative feelings, which is weird. And actually probably scared of my full potential, like, because all of a sudden think, oh my God, there is more. Like there is more, I can do more. I didn't realize. I mean, I'm already so happy with where I've got to, considering where I was at one time in my life, that I'm like, I never visualized my life where it is now. At my darkest hours, I genuinely thought it was going in a completely different way. But now it's like you level up and then you level up a bit, and then I don't think you have to keep leveling up, but in that plateau bit, or that being content with where I've got, I get the excitement still, and then I dampen it with a bit of alcohol or having crap night's sleep because I've been out too late or whatever it is. So it is absolutely fear driven of my potential, that I'm good enough, I'm better than I thought I was going to be, I've got more to give.
So much in that.
Sorry, I'm going on.
No, not an apology. I think it's really interesting because it's old patterns of behavior, right? And I think the order of these episodes, we've just recorded the Inalienable Truth episode, but it's going to come out after this episode. So I don't want to confuse people too much, but you were talking about, you now only, if we take alcohol as a saboteur or incompetent close protection team, you say you only drink on good emotions now. So it's habitual to some degree and societal, because that's how we all get together in the UK and have fun. And we all know that the price is going to be paid tomorrow, probably the day after, and we'll have this hideous anxiety, and all of the old blueprint doubt pours into that space. Whereas you're talking about your potential, stepping into this. You use the word better, and I don't know how I feel about the word better.
Of course you wouldn't like that word.
It feels there's judgment in better.
Yeah, I know. I get
there might not be, but that this huge power and potential and all these things. But you also started by saying that you're a bit afraid of what that might be. What are you afraid of?
Well, I waver from, just be content with where you've got. You're doing a great job. Like you don't need more. You don't need more. So again, for those people that are not necessarily open to spirituality, this might be too much, but it's not too much for me. I had a reading not that long ago, which was called it was a soul reading. So it talks about where I've had karma in my past, where there's maybe holes in my aura, why I behave a certain way, even down to all the good deeds I've done, and like how many, I can't even remember how they worded it, but like I was like, deeds that like you're good karma without you didn't do it for anything in return, you didn't even know you did it, because if you know you did it, then you wouldn't be like. So I've got a lot of light around me. It was very positive. And she said to me, like, basically what I'm doing is exactly what I'm meant to be doing. I found my purpose in life. But she said, you have a second gift where you could be an incredible healer. Like you're already a healer, but you could be on another level. So, and she goes, but you won't, it's not negative. You won't have crap karma now or negative karma from it by not jumping into it or exploring it, just letting you know that that's there.
Yeah.
So I know, so I already felt this in me. I felt it for a long time, and I hate it because it sounds like I've been ego driven. I'm not. This is totally soul driven, and this conversation comes from a deeper part than my ego, because I don't even like saying the word healer. Like that doesn't feel right. I just want to be able to do my work without people even having to label it in any way, even oh gosh. But interestingly, I was high as a kite, as you could imagine, after that reading, because it showed me where I had work to do, and where, like, you know, at the same time it showed me, God, you've got something special, you know. And I think from then I have purposely been trying to dampen, not explore it, but do the absolute opposite of exploring it, because then I now feel a responsibility, because I know that there is more that I can give.
Yeah, interesting, because a lot of my personal relationship with self-sabotage is fear of failure, fear of judgment, all those kind of things, which is kind of where I thought you were going to go. But actually, no, absolutely no need to apologize, because you've kind of come to a point of something almost even bigger. It's like, if I get this, the responsibility on me is exponentially bigger to use that gift in an exponentially larger way. And it's, how can you possibly understand what that means at this point?
Yeah,
because you've only got your lived experience. Well, I mean, you haven't, because your spiritual soul readings and the other things that you do offers a bigger picture. But I hadn't considered that as a reason to self-sabotage, is that the responsibility is on me then if I have this gift.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me, it's that there are a handful of people in the world. For the longest time, I had convinced myself I didn't care what people thought of me, and to some degree that was true. I was very careful whose opinions I allowed to shape me. And at the same time, there are a small group of people whose opinions are very important to me. And I sort of feel over the last 10 years, specifically the last 5 years, that where our trajectories have been pretty parallel, pretty close together and pretty parallel, there's increasing divergence. So I'm moving away from that path at a faster rate than they are. And it is something I have become aware of, that it's like, I really want these people to think well of me. And the kind of stuff I'm exploring personally is a million miles away from what I perceive as their comfort zone. And I don't know what happens if I take the next step into that kind of exploration. I don't know I don't know which relationships survive that and how they survive that.
Well, I think it's a bit of a dance, if I'm honest, because I've been there and I'm still there and I still do it. So, I mean, I came back years ago, like we've said, like 15 years ago, with all this I changed so much, and no one understood. All my friends that I had before did not get me whatsoever. I think the beauty of now is I'm just doing what I know. Like, I'm just doing what now feels right. I'm not worried so much about what people think. However, also this world, the spiritual world, the self-development, like, is grown so much. Like, my friend said to me, your world is opening up in every way right now, Lisa. Like, for one, you haven't got the anchoring of caring so much. You're also, like, you've got so much freedom to actually,
and by caring, you don't mean emotionally caring, but actually physically caring for
being a carer.
your family.
Yeah, being a carer. Sorry, for those who've not heard my podcast before. And also your work, like your career, like what your, it's not, doesn't feel like a career, what your way of life, your way of being is expanding, because the world is more open to it than it's ever been. So I shied away. I've learned how to meet people where they're at. It's been great. I mean, it's great. And I'm very, very, very skillful at talking what people's levels are at.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm less apologetic about, but this is what I believe. Like, absolutely cool if you don't. And it does create divides, and then that's also another reason why I end up socializing, and the easiest thing to do is like have a drink, and but also my willpower. Like, it's not just about that, but ultimately that's a huge factor in that, because it takes you on a journey, and we've said it before, you can't unlearn what you've learned. You get to a certain, like, and if you're experience something and it feels right, then you want to experience more of it, so you do more of it, and you explore another modality, or you have another reading, or whatever takes your fancy, to try and explore all of what we talk about as humans. But I do feel then people you do lose connections with people, and you have to be okay with that, but also you attract other people into your life.
It's a really interesting one, and I'm at least aware of it, and I know that. Do I know? I don't know, but I'm at least aware of it, and that I think I kind of feel I've been on a plateau for a bit, and it feels like, all right, it's time to scale the next part of the peak. But that's very specific to me. Given that this is, I think, a hugely widespread phenomenon, self-sabotage.
Yeah.
I've got friends who are, I guess, used to chaos, like more chaotic life.
Yeah.
That even though there's this desire for something else, what they know is more chaotic, therefore that's the pattern that repeats.
Yeah, and I wrote that down as a past Lisa used to create chaos, because that was what I was used to.
Yeah.
And I see that in others. And interestingly, my best friend said, I don't think you do that anymore. She's even said, I was talking to her about some things that were going on this week, and she said, I don't think you're sabotaging yourself. Like, you have many times in your lifetime, but right now I think you're being the most authentic you've ever been. Like, and that is what's happening for you right now. So but one of the other ones for me, which is I'm sure lots of listeners, well, I don't know, I'm assuming, which is not a good thing, is self-image. Like, self-image is another. So I asked my husband, how do you think I sabotage? And I asked him the same question, and he said, self-image, when you have your moments of poor self-image, alcohol, which he agreed also the same with him. And by the way, we're not massive boozers. We are like, we don't drink every night. It sounds like it, but they are. I think that's probably why it's even more obvious, is because
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I would always have associated self-sabotage with big, like, life derailing actions. You've spent however long trying to get a promotion at work, and then when you do, you don't do the work, whatever. It's a terrible example, because I never had that, but you know what I mean. That you're just at the point where you're going to get what you want, and you do something huge to blow it up.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be that. it can just be these smaller, just going to chip the edge off that. So you go, oh, it's going to take me 2 or 3 days to get back, at least 2 or 3 days to get back where I was. And then I've lost, you said it earlier, you've lost the flow and the momentum and the kind of natural state of creation and moving forward. So yeah.
But it's like, but yeah, and I think, you know, you're right, that, you know, you're going to go for a promotion, you might stay up all night instead of actually get a good night's kip and do all the right things that's going to nurture you to be your best self. It's like people who are dieting, who have, you know, issues with food, do really, really well, and then decide to devour a whole cake, for example. And I know that's been extreme, and then beat themselves up for so long. And then instead of just seeing it, it's just a little edge off that, then it becomes destructive. Oh, well, I've already gone there now. Well, my diet's over and done with. I'm just going to continue eating crap food.
I'm a terrible person. I can't even do this.
Yeah. Rather than, wasn't ideal, not moving towards the future self that I want to be, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Where I think back in the day, I probably would go into, oh my God, like, you know, if I die, like, rather than like, I am just a human being, you know, like it is totally fine. Like whatever that not such healthy thing I've done, eat something, drink something, whatever I've done, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. No one's died, you know, like, but it can be catastrophic if you want to continue that on to be catastrophic.
It's almost the you know, I think a way to start thinking about self-sabotage and how to combat it is asking ourselves the question is like, what am I afraid of in this moment? Because I think for a lot of people, there is a fear of something happening if you finally get what you want. When you said earlier about the responsibility of stepping into this greater, more powerful you, I'd never thought about that as a reason for sabotaging. And I think a lot of people, it is, I'm afraid of not being worthy of it, which is deep blueprint. I'm afraid I'll be judged. I'm afraid that the friends I have aren't going to come. I'm going to take that step to the next level, and that I'm going to be judged. So for me, it's always been a case of, okay, what am I afraid of here? Because I'm at a point where I can expand or constrict. And self-sabotage is a constricting set of behaviors.
Yeah.
And I also think it's that you mentioned manifesting earlier. So I think there's self-sabotage in these kind of, as we would think of them as, big moments where we fuck up, for want of better language for that.
I think my language has been quite colourful on this one.
But there's also those smaller self-sabotages. And I kind of wanted to link that in with the manifesting you were talking about. It's, I need to get my notes up so I can remember exactly what it was I was thinking. But I think it ties back to the language we use in our own heads. You know, I used to ski until I had a big accident and smashed my collarbone. But there was this idea that as you're skiing, you don't say to yourself, don't hit the tree.
No.
Don't hit the tree. Don't hit the tree, because you end up hitting the tree.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, ski into the space. I'm not offer mounted, but ski into, you know what I mean? So it's that finding ways to switch our language. And it's always like when we're under pressure, it's like, don't get it wrong, don't get it wrong, don't get it wrong, don't get it wrong. But the manifesting energy of that is get it wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's be relaxed and give it your best, be relaxed, give it your best, be relaxed, give it your best. Yesterday on the gymnastics, Simone Biles, absolute goat, before she started her floor routine, she took a massive in breath, let it out, opened her eyes, and you could see her mouth, I've got this. And then she smashed physics and everything, quantum theory. And it's that kind of, can we bring awareness to the language we use to ourselves? Are we setting ourselves up for it to go okay? And then combine that with, what am I afraid of? What do I think is going to happen if I get what I want? I don't know whether that's a complete point or not.
No, but it's interesting, because I've known that for a long time regarding manifesting. Is like, if we want to use the word universe, like, they won't hear the not.
It's not the intention around it, is it?
It's like it's and I've had it happen to me many times where I've used the wrong analogy, like the wrong wording, or it's come from a slightly more negative slant, like, I do not want this.
It's the fear
please
slant.
don't let them make that happen, please don't let that happen, rather it's not going to happen, and if it does, it will be okay. Yeah, no, I get, and I massively get that. I guess when it comes down to if there's things that you're stopping yourself from doing by sabotaging, by not, I guess a question you ask is, I'm trying to word it the right way, is what I'm doing now supporting my future goals or my future self? Is, in that moment, is this going to serve me moving forward?
Yeah. Will tomorrow's me thank me, or be stuck in a pit of self-loathing?
Yeah, exactly. Because it changes, because regardless if you talk energy or not, like, you're just dulled, right? You don't feel good, and who doesn't want to feel good? Like, I mean, it's not sustainable. We're not meant to feel happy all the time. That's not achievable, and actually is not human. And I think there's something wonderful about having all sorts of emotions that come and go, and not grasping onto any of them, but when it comes to self-sabotage, we can go into, like you said, if we've done something that isn't going to support our future self, then our thoughts are then going to sabotage us, because we're going to be lost in negative thoughts.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because you're talking about the energy of things, and societally in the UK, we are not very good at the kind of, there's the thing called the tall poppy syndrome, and it's those who rise above in any way get cut down. There's a moment where people go, oh yeah, congratulations, well done, and then it's like, get a bit too big for your boots, cut you down. And it's that whole idea of, well, do I really want to be at this low level, less fulfilled, less happy, less all that I could be and accepted? Or do I want to go, actually, I don't want to be in this miserable club anymore, and I understand you aren't all going to come with me, and I understand that you aren't all going to understand it, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Of taking another step, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be told another, like, similar, it's like, crabs in the net and there's a hole, and one of them finds the hole and they climb out, but all the rest of them pull it back down again. And it's the same. It's and interestingly, I remember following someone through lockdown when I had to be more visible on social media, like, if I wanted to be seen,
doing any work,
doing anything, and at the time I did everything for free anyway, and that was from fear of not knowing what I was doing, or not trying to work out how to make money teaching yoga online. I didn't want any pressure of anything, a fear of not succeeding, I guess, if I'm being really honest with myself. But that one person that went and did it, like, basically was doing what I wanted to do, rather than being jealous of it, I was like, oh my God, you're giving me permission to do it. So I want to now, moving forward for me, I want to give people permission to do it.
Yeah.
And if I have clients, how do I move from being in corporate to being self-employed, and I'll do something, like, you will, because we all had to make that step. Oh, no, I didn't come from corporate, but we all have to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
I want to be that person, not because I want to be the ego. I don't want anyone to think that, oh my God, she's amazing. Just like, come on, it's worth being your true self. It's worth having being that beaming light, rather than dulling yourself. And we've talked about it a billion times on these podcasts. It feels like, is like, we do it so frequently, and I think that's a sabotage. However you do it, don't matter how you dull it, that is ultimately what happens.
It's that relationship with seeing people, and you saying, actually, I'm not jealous by this, I'm I see it as I have permission, because I was going to say there's nothing special about that person. That's not true. There is equal amount special about you or me, whoever is listening. And I remember a moment when I had this transition from a mindset that kept feeding me jealousy to one that chose to be inspired. And it was a woman I used to work with. And it was when I was talking to Louisa about moving out of London to move, we didn't know where, but I wanted to live in the countryside. And we'd been chatting about it for about a year, me and this other woman at work. And one day she came in and said, "Oh yeah, I'm moving at the weekend." And it was like, "What? Where are you moving to?" And she said, "Oh yeah, we're moving down into the Cotswolds." But it was almost a year to the day we were having this conversation. And my first reaction in my brain was, so jealous because you have more willpower or more motivation or whatever it is. And I'm still stuck here, haven't done anything other than talk about it. But before I said, "Oh, I'm so jealous," another part of my brain kicked in and went, "Yeah, but she's just chosen to do it. So actually, I think I feel inspired by this." And Louise and I moved 6 months later, something like that. Yeah. But it was that dragging around the old, "Oh, it's all really hard, and it's this, and it's that, and it's the other," to, well, they've done it. Just kind of do it. And I appreciate moving house is different to dropping away decades of conditioning and stepping in and kind of have people look at you going, "Wow, I don't entirely recognize that person anymore."
Well,
but it's a similar thing.
And that's really interesting, because I just did a private one-to-one with a friend. I feel like all my students one-to-one become friends. There is a boundary, but I'm not worried about it. I quite like having that rapport.
Happy to dance around it.
She said, "Oh, one of my friends from school, she's about 10 years, maybe 15 years younger than me. She said, she's just become a yoga teacher and she's teaching from Portchester. But if you'd known her when she was at school, there's no way in a million years I thought she'd be a yoga teacher." And I went, "Amy, if you knew me when I was at school, there was no way in a million years you'd have thought I was going to be a yoga teacher."
Yeah.
It's like things change.
What is it about yoga? Because anyone who knew me 10 years ago would have gone, "You're a what?" Not that I actively teach, but I am a qualified yoga teacher.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, we talked about what we were like at university. So I think I've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
All praise to it. There's a quote, it's attributed to Muhammad Ali, but I don't, like all these quotes, I don't know whether it is actually him. But it's, if you're the same at 50 as you were at 30, you've wasted 20 years of your life.
Oh God, that's powerful, isn't it?
Punches you right in the guts, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
Thankfully, I'm a long way from where I was at 30, but it is this, I think we just have this conditioning around the solidity of how things should be, but it doesn't suit us. So we don't have to, but when we find our way to recognizing, yeah, but that's somebody else's solidity, not mine, and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to find a group of people who will support this, who will help in this, and I'm going to step out of this thing that I don't want anymore. Because, if we go back to the inalienable truths and the blueprint, it's not our fault.
No,
it is our problem.
Yeah, and that's when I think sabotage, what sabotage means for me. I have the awareness now to know when I'm not doing something that's going to serve me. So I know all of this, and yet I will still choose things that will stop me from that. That's, to me, is what sabotage is.
Yeah.
I just really summed it up there.
Mic drop.
Well, in my head, maybe not to the listeners, but to me, I'm like, okay, I've got to my right. That's it. See you later.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
And with it, I think it ties back to the whole kind of, you said it earlier, we're just human. So I don't believe there is a moment, maybe there is, but it's very rare that there's a moment of awareness followed by a complete change in behavior patterns that never regress. right? That old blueprint is incredibly elastic, and in all sorts of moments, it will snap back. So the question isn't if I self-sabotage, how badly do I beat myself up? The question is, when it happens, how can I minimize the impact? And what can I do so that next time it's even smaller?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's being kind and softer. So
It's that
something that,
self-compassion.
and there's something that, I mean, it's funny, actually, you're making me think. I haven't heard anyone say it to me for what feels quite a long time, but for most of my life, you are really hard on yourself. You are so hard on yourself. Like with all the knowledge that I was trying to implement or whatever, felt to me that I had to be this perfect person.
Yeah.
Which we know is absolutely not even slightly. There's nothing that can be perfect. We know that. Most people know that. But with that, if I did something that I knew, if I already knew it, and I say I'll keep doing the same thing, then, repeating the same thing, it's a sign of insanity. But
Yeah.
we do keep repeating the same
We
thing.
do,
So
yeah.
then I'd be like really hard on myself, going, oh my God, I'm insane. And I'm just like, like not like, not mentally insane, but like so hard on myself about
Yeah.
it, and thinking I'm the only person in the world that's doing this. I'm the only
Yeah.
one. No one else does this. And I
Yeah.
think there's something really refreshing, and I think might be why these podcasts are landing with people, is like, it's refreshing for people to be honest and go, we all do stuff that we wish we did differently, behaved a different way, had a different thought process, looked a different way at times, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
For some of it, it's more heightened in others, but different aspects of that. But we are just human beings, and just be kind. Just be kindest to yourself first.
And actually, that the kind of genesis of that compassion, I don't know whether it's a genesis or the path to, don't know, but finding a place within us of deep self-love, self-acceptance. I think a lot of self-sabotage comes from a feeling of lack of worthiness of whatever thing it is we think we want or that will improve our lives. That deep, yoga for me was the gift of you are enough. Just as you are, you always have been. That then helped kind of me on my journey of self-compassion to self-love, that was like, well, of course I'm going to fuck up every now and then. I'm a human being. Okay, cool. Well, if we're willing to accept that, what do we do about it? Not beat ourselves up and get stuck in a hole for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good conversation, this one. I like it. I'm very aware of it, and I'm very aware of it in other people. And
yeah, and so just on that point, because I can think of a few people, and that whole kind of, I think for many of us in different times, you mentioned it, we know the chaos. So as uncomfortable as the chaos feels, there is still a level of comfort because we understand it.
Yeah.
And so as painful and as destructive as it might be, if we've been brought up in a world that has been the case, then it isn't illogical. The decision makes sense because we know what to expect. We know the world's going to fall around our ears. We know it's going to catch fire. And although obviously we don't want that to happen, we know it's predictable and we can live in a predictable world. When we change all of that, there is no predictability because we're moving into new territory. And trusting that, really being clear on what is it that I really want. Do I have a self-compassion practice? Do I have self-love? Do I deserve this? Yeah, because we're all enough. Okay, I can face the unpredictability of this in a way that when I feel myself kind of at that crossroads going, ooh, signpost to hell, do you know what? I might not go there.
Yeah.
I might go the other way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
I think that for me is all I have to say. Anything you want to add?
No, I've weirdly enjoyed the conversation. Like, be it the topic, yeah, I think no, nothing more to add. and always interesting where it goes as well. You know, I think for those who listen to this, is like, there's no script, there's no, we both have time to reflect.
They can't tell.
Yeah, of course they can tell, but you know, I love the fact that we follow where it goes to, unless sometimes I know we've gone totally off piece, but
I don't mind that.
I just learn so much. I genuinely learn so much about myself and people and you, and like, and be it, if anyone else listens, I'm like, oh yeah, that was wholesome. That's I've got some absolute gems of wisdom there, and so thank you.
And thank you. I'm looking at self-sabotage for different reasons there, which is a very interesting thing for me to contemplate.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, that just leaves us to say thank you to everybody who's been listening to the Hands Up If You're Human podcast. We are honestly, truly grateful that we get the chance to even do this. So we do want to continue. We do want to improve it. Obviously, if you share it, like it really helps us out. Also, we'd love feedback. We'd love to know if we go into another season, what kind of things you'd like to talk about. And the best way to do that is probably drop us an email, I'd say, on handsupifyou'rehuman@gmail.com. Yep. And that's all I'm going to say, really, except for we are breaking for the summer. So we just need to, I'm away a lot. It's just really difficult navigating summer holidays and diaries. And I honestly, I don't know my arse from my elbow most days. What day is it? Where's everyone meant to be? So we just thought, with that in mind, it'd be best to just take a pause, and gives us time, like I said, to look at improving this, because we know we can improve this. Like, that's one thing. We started at absolute with no idea how it's going to land, how we were going to really go about it, and so we all do our best to make improvements where we feel needed.
Yeah, and if anybody has any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. We are open to, speaking of rigidity, we are open to new ideas and new approaches.
Yeah, I know sound is a problem. I've tried a few different things out, so that's something that I might look at. My annoyance is, and not all the listeners who hear this, is I haven't got a single space. So if you do watch this on YouTube, like, you'll see me in different rooms, and that
you can start plotting Lisa's house.
Yeah, which means different lighting, just different everything. So I'm working on getting a space, so that will be helpful.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, I was going to say one other thing. There will be one more episode going out next Tuesday before we technically break. Lisa and I are going to break as of today, but there will be another Inalienable Truth episode coming out next week, and then it will be September.
Yeah, a bit bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, bloody hell.
All right.
I wish you a happy summer.
Yep.
I'll speak to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.